3, and then. Oops, sorry, should I start over?
I think that's okay. Thank
Okay.
you, Sabina.
And then, so then the new number 4 would be discuss the community forum with David White from Sterling Mountain Planning. Thank you, David, for joining us. David will also have one of his colleagues join us via Zoom. And with those sub bullets, we're going to change things up a little bit again. We're going to start out with PC roles and responsibilities, public outreach, and then review the materials. So that's all the new number 4. We will then approve the meeting minutes as number 5. We'll see how far we get. And if we have time before 8 o'clock, then Linda will give her planner's report and we'll go to other business and wrap up. So with that, are there any other adjustments to the agenda from PC members? Okay, hearing none, then we are going to move to public comment number 3. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on anything other than what's already listed in the agenda? Yes, Mr. Lacy.
Can you
If
come
you
up? Please.
I have a couple suggestions. One is, well, suggestion and a comment. My suggestion is that in the spirit and my own confidence that you're working on a plan with the intention of getting things done, that you really take a strong look at what we have for town government and what we need to get it done. And start early with the select board talking about the fact that you're working on putting things in the town plan, if you are, that are going to require either expertise, ability or something that we currently don't have. You want to get the select board thinking about that early. I've been reading the select board minutes I started in 1954. Now I'm up to 1972. And in the 60s, they were having the same conversation. We basically had the same government. We had 3 select board members, one person doing what John Abbott does, someone in planning and someone in zoning. It's the same government. And I don't think the select board's going to see it. It's almost like giving yourself a raise or something. Okay. So I think it's like outside bodies need to say, look, we can't do what needs to be done unless we start getting ahead of this. And the first thing is we have these septic studies, and I feel like there's just kind of nothing going on right now. We're going to get the septic studies, and then we're going to start saying, well, who's going to manage this thing, and where are we going to get the money, and how do we apply for grants, and all that stuff should already be happening. Okay, who's going to run the project? People should be out looking at other kind of septic systems and talking to operators and seeing who the right builders are, who the right engineers are. And if there's grants, let's identify them now, start the applications, fill in where it's going to go later. But let's, and I think the planning commission is, I think you need to communicate. The second thing is this study. I'm thinking, about public transit lately. And, this is a study that David has that was sponsored by the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. And basically their conclusion is to have a viable bus stop in Jericho Corners, we need another 3,500 people living in Jericho Corners. And the same commitment to population density, groups of 4,000 or 5,000 people in the other towns up Route 15. I don't really know what to make of this, but and the whole idea of having a bus stop in a place where there's no parking and where there never will be any parking, and then planning on a transportation system that involves a bus stop that will never have enough density and never have parking. To me, I think we need to really kind of think a little more. And this study calls for demand response. Basically, you go pick people up when they need rides and take them, kind of take them where they're going. The bus stop in Richmond works because there's parking right there. People can come from a kind of a variety of different places. Nobody else in Jericho can use, the only people who can use the bus stop in Jericho Corners are the people who live, within half a mile of it. Nobody else can use it. And so to have a plan with a transportation system that's sort of kind of really focused on that, I think is something that just needs more thought. So this study's on the website of the regional planning.
Thank you, Jeff.
And I think it's the other, one last point is if you're committed to fixed bus stops and regular bus service, you simultaneously have to be committed to about 10 big apartment buildings, like from Essex or like from Williston in Jericho Corners, for that to work. Okay, so you can't want one without the other.
Thank you, Jeff.
And very relevant to our community forum that includes transportation as well as housing. So all this is good fodder for those conversations. I'm seeing that there are other members of the public on the Zoom call, at least I believe there are. Are there other members of the public that would like to participate in comment on any items that is not already on the agenda?
Right now, there are no hands, but I guess we could ask for people just to unmute if they have a question, but nobody raised their hand.
Okay, given our time limitations, we'll move on. The public should know they'll have an opportunity to comment about the community forum after the presentation and after some of the PC members have a chance to respond. So next we're going to do David and Liz. Are you all ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you and good evening. David White from Sterling Mountain Community Planning and Design, and my colleague Liz Kelly from Resilience Planning and Design is on the Zoom, and Liz is gonna share her screen and show some slides to kind of frame our conversation about the upcoming community forum event in the beginning of May.
Excuse me, David, I just see a hand. I think I see a hand.
I think that's the mouse.
Oh, that's the
I
mouse.
don't know
Never
why
mind.
it's hand. I noticed that too.
Okay.
Hand sheets,
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
so I don't know what's
I
up.
thought that was Susan's hand.
So Liz, I think if you want to jump in and share your screen, we can jump right into that, and then I'll kind of add along the way as necessary.
Sure, that sounds great. Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen really quickly. Okay, can everyone see the slides?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. That's great. So this is my first time with all of you tonight. So I'll just start quickly by introducing myself. My name is Liz Kelly. I'm part of the Resilience Planning and Design firm that has been working with David in the background, particularly on outreach for this project. So I'm excited to be with you all here tonight to talk a little bit more about the community forum event, which crazily is coming up so soon. I feel like this spring is going by very quickly. So I know May 3rd is really only a few weeks away. So it feels good to be here to discuss some of the details and logistics with all of you. So I'm going to just jump right in, and I'll ask some questions throughout the kind of slides that I prepared. And please feel free to jump in with questions of your own, or if you just have any clarifying comments about the content that I'm sharing. Okay, great. All right, so the goals of any type of community forum event like this are really to engage community members in the town plan update process. Typically at the beginning of an event like this, we like to explain the role of the town plan in kind of shaping the future, particularly as it relates to land use, growth, and development of the community. For anyone who doesn't know or have that background, we also typically provide a brief overview of the work that's been done so far. So some of the updated data and trends by topic provide some of that additional education of where Jericho is today. And then really use the bulk of the time that we have with the public to solicit community feedback on key issues, opportunities, challenges, and priorities as far as planning for the future of the town goes. And this feedback, along with all the other outreach that's been conducted during this project so far, and that will continue to be conducted after this event, will inform the creation of the updated town plan. And this is just a photo on the right of a community forum event that we held somewhat recently, where neighbors, other community members, residents, business owners, property owners are connecting with each other in a relatively informal environment and can participate at their leisure, which we've noticed can be really a positive municipal government experience for folks. So we'll talk a little bit more about this format and hear your thoughts on it in just a little bit. So to dive a little bit deeper into the agenda of an event like this, and again, please feel free to interrupt me with any questions or comments that you have. And David, I'm going to look to you maybe to help kind of or who I guess whoever the person is to help facilitate some of the questions and comments while I'm on Zoom. That would be awesome. So in terms of the agenda for an event like this, typically there is some kind of welcome and overview presentation at the beginning, which could have David, it could have Steve, it could have Susan, basically some kind of designated individuals who can speak on behalf of the project and orient folks, participants who come to the room in the event itself, and then provide some of the background and context related to the project. And really, that's a very short part of the evening, typically no more than 10 minutes. And the remainder of the event is often interactive and self-guided. So we've seen a lot of success with this format as far as allowing residents and community members to attend and really be self-guided in how they participate. We, in terms of the conversations that have happened thus far, have been anticipating 8 topic-specific stations that are set up around the room. And participants can choose to visit any or all of the stations that are set up and spend as much time as they wish to at, again, any of the stations to provide their feedback and ideas. So these include demographics, housing, transportation, economy, community infrastructure, land use, and natural resources. And for those who are unable to attend this event or have additional feedback once the event concludes, we are anticipating creating an alternative online SurveyMonkey version of this event that would be set up for 4 weeks once it concludes. So for anyone who's just not able to participate but wants to provide feedback on the questions that are generated to solicit feedback later, they can.
Liz, can you just speak briefly about how we will solicit and collect information from the public?
Absolutely. Yeah. So typically what we've done in the past is a couple different things. We've created worksheets that have 2 to 4 discussion questions on them that people can fill out. There are often educational posters, which we'll talk about later tonight, that display data and trends and observations about the town today that can be used to kind of stimulate and inspire answers to those questions. Sometimes there's also activities as well, where we have sticky dots or Post-it notes or something like that that are a little bit more engaging and solicit feedback on types of questions, but in a different format. It's just not writing on worksheets. It's engaging in a different way, or maybe it's through a spatial type activity with a map, and the sticky dots go on the map to portray something. So those are really the ways that feedback is collected, is that kind of interactive activity or like the worksheets, and sometimes both.
Yeah, Linda,
Great.
you got
Yeah, I have a question. Can we get the link for the survey for the 4 weeks after, so we can have it on our planning commission town plan webpage? Because I'm assuming it's gonna be off of our website, it won't live on our website the way our
Correct.
questions of the month have, it'll be an external link.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, if you could get that, actually give it to Sabina and she'll set it up.
But wait, can you clarify, how would somebody who doesn't go to this event find that survey?
So they will find that information in the same ways we're going to do outreach about the event. When and where that there'll be links or QR codes on the website, on the posters, where somebody could go and learn more about how they can participate. They can come to the event, or I can click on this link and I can participate at home.
Exactly.
Is this a time, or can we interject questions along the way?
Sure.
Is that-
Yes.
So thank you. Thank you for providing a little bit more background. I have some questions about the self-guided nature
Yes.
of the event, which I love. And I've done sort of like the World Cafe format. This seems like a modified version of that.
Yes.
But I'm wondering about the opportunities for folks to get into discussions if there's not like a set time where folks come and like, okay, you have 10 minutes. You can, stay at this topic for 10 minutes, or you vote with your feet and you go to another topic. But there's sort of some level of boundaries by time, so that folks who want to engage in conversation on transportation you have like sort of that critical mass of folks there to have a discussion. And I'm just wondering how have you structured communal forums in that way, that some semi-structured way, or have you seen folks kind of be able to engage in kind of discussion with their neighbors in this totally self-guided format?
It's a great question. We definitely do see in this, again, the self-guided format, that people tend to congregate and have conversations in small groups naturally. So that does happen in a less formal type setting. In terms of like whether all the feedback of those small conversations are being transcribed, that's the part that's not necessarily being facilitated. But there's usually quite a bit of buzz of energy in during an event like this, just due to the fact that it's so informal. I mean, some folks are even like socializing to some degree. And so we do see that people are talking in small groups about community issues and projects and priorities and things like that, but it's just not as facilitated. I think there are pros and cons to both ways. This is, to me, a really, really great format for collecting as much feedback from possible from the public. And in general, community members tend to have very high praise for an event like this because it's so flexible, and they can kind of participate as they want to. And it's very convenient in that way. Oftentimes, a lot of people will come knowing what they want to say. And so it provides a format for them to kind of get in. And if they want to participate in a longer discussion, they can, but like they can also, if they have time constraints, meet those. Does that help?
It does. It does. And maybe this sort of segue, and I don't want to take up too much airtime, but maybe this segues also into the roles and responsibilities for the PC members. Like, are there like one of us at each station? Are we taking notes? Is like, maybe you can talk a little bit about what we would be doing during this.
Awesome. I have a whole slide on that. So that sounds great. It's pretty simple, but I have a slide. Okay, great. Any other questions before I move on? Okay, great.
Nope.
Awesome. And I just wanted to note that some of the photos on the right just show some of the kind of station setups, where, again, I'll talk a little bit more about details related to materials in a little bit, but you can just see how some of them are set up. Okay, so you'll notice this slide is a little slim. So I'll explain that a bit more in a second. So at an event like this, we see there being a lot of value to have as many committee members there as are able to and or want to be present. Honestly, the biggest way that you can help, even though this seems very I guess I don't know what the right word is, but participating with enthusiasm and being some of the first folks to participate is actually one of the best ways to get other folks to engage with the process during the event. Additionally, we will provide lanyards with colored paper that distinguish each committee member from any other member of the public that's in attendance. And during the welcome and overview at the beginning of the event, we'll just introduce very briefly the fact that the committee members, have these lanyards that distinguish them from other folks and are available and will be kind of meandering about the room to answer any questions or serve as a resource. And if there's questions that any committee member is unable to answer, then you can feel free to direct them to David or to town staff or to myself or Steve or whoever's going to be there. So in terms, we get the question every time we kind of coordinate an event like this or work with the community to do so, whether there should be committee members stationed at any particular table. And one thing we've noticed is that sometimes that can deter some folks from participating as freely. And it's not like that for every community by any means, but it's just something that we've observed and noticed. And so that's why we tend to not have committee members stationed permanently at any particular place. If you happen to be wandering about the room and your particular affinity topic is transportation and you end up there the longest, that's great. But in terms of being like responsible for a particular station and, being responsible for being there the whole evening, we tend to not necessarily recommend that because we do notice that having that for members of the public, having a little bit more freedom to go and provide the feedback that they want to provide somewhat anonymously if they want, and to absorb some of that information on their own has been really effective. But again, we're really open to what you all think as well in terms of what you've seen work in your community. But that's just something we've observed.
So that assumes, I guess, that you have enough information presented at each station that will be self-explanatory without somebody to explain the importance of the issue or the different aspects of the issue.
That's the goal. However, typically there are usually enough representatives of town staff, the consulting team, as well as the planning commission members that in general, there usually is enough of a distribution of people that are kind of, wandering about the room that like you probably could there's enough folks that like if you were at a station and had a question, you could find someone very easily to ask them a clarifying question. So typically that's what happens. If there's only 2 planning commission members that attend, then maybe it's a little bit different, but.
I think it's fair to say that, the role that all of us play, staff, consultants, planning commissioners, is really to circulate through the event, be there as a resource to answer people's questions, to listen in on some of those groups that have gathered to discuss a particular topic and understand what are they talking about, what issues are they raising, make sure we're in some form trying to collect some of that information to bring back, but again, not being kind of parked in one place for the entire time because somebody maybe is that they're less likely to come and fill out the questions at that table if they're not comfortable doing that when somebody's there or for whatever reason. So we want to keep things very flexible with people moving around, and our job is to circulate, answer questions, and be kind of eyes and ears.
So will somebody at the outset then, you're describing 8 different topics or stations. Will somebody be describing, give an overview of those 8 stations?
Not in significant detail, I would assume, Liz, is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, typically what the focus of the kind of overview and welcome is on is sort of like the nuts and bolts on how it works, how it's interactive, it's self-guided, and how people can contribute feedback at however many tables or stations that they wish. Typically, we don't necessarily provide an overview of what's at each station because oftentimes it's a bit repetitive from what's already there. And it keeps the presentation a little bit shorter, which we notice that oftentimes people are really happy. And I'm generalizing a little bit, so bear with me. But oftentimes people are happy to start participating sooner and be able to tell us what they want us to know in a quicker fashion. So we find that it's not necessary to provide that background because the materials at the table should be relatively self-explanatory, and we like to keep the presentation short so people can get going quicker.
Sabina or Susan, do you have any questions yet or comments about the format?
Hey, this is Susan. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I think since the materials are the primary form of communication with all the people, that the materials themselves need to be very accessible, meaning like, you know, some people are older like me and need reading glasses, and really, you know, intensive text or charts or graphs can be kind of intimidating. So I'm wondering if, as you guys are refining, the materials that David shared with us as a draft are great because they're so rich with data, but in some ways we have to think about people who don't think about these issues all the time, and we want to be very friendly and welcoming, and maybe somebody's 16 years old and maybe somebody's 86 years old, and how do we make the material something that they don't feel daunted by? That's one comment. And then my other comment is, I'm a little worried that there's going to be all these great side conversations that we won't be able to mine, or since we're not transcribing what everybody's saying and we aren't recording all the different conversations. Like, I'm worried that there's going to be a wealth of great conversation that we're just going to not be able to benefit from. I'm wondering how, you know, maybe in your experience, there's enough wandering and milling in the big topics, and we've heard a lot of things before, but if you could reassure us, I guess, that we're not going to miss a lot of really important stuff. And then, so now, Sabina, you can mute me again.
I was thinking that I concur with that thought, Susan, because I was thinking about when we did the tours around the different neighborhoods in Jericho, and we each had each committee member had their own tour group, and we were able to get a lot of information from each group because we were present at each group. But Sabina, I want to make sure you have a chance to speak before I go on.
I don't really have anything additional right now.
So yeah, so for me, it's like the balance between it, like the information dissemination was a goal, but also this, you know, interactive and collecting feedback was the primary goal. And I would want to make sure that we have mechanisms to collect that feedback and to also just really engage in conversation with folks, because these settings are very formal. And, you know, one person speaks, one person listens. I don't know. There's just the ability for a little bit more fluid dialogue than what we experience here at formal meetings.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a little bit more of a ability to have kind of close knit relations, which is great. And it really builds community. In terms of the kind of capturing the like sentiments that are happening in these small group conversations, I think David hit the nail on the head as far as if we have committee members that are floating around the room, like people are more than welcome and often do take notes on some of the conversations that they hear, again, in a less formal way, a less kind of like, you know, facilitator type way. We also do encourage people who are engaged in rich small group conversations to actually write stuff down and participate in the activities that are like set up throughout the room, because we really want to hear the rich feedback that's coming out of that. So it's kind of a balance between like knowing when to, you know, be able to take some notes as kind of representatives of this greater planning commission and staff in this kind of, you know, town plan team, for lack of better words. And then also knowing when to tell people to actually write some of their feedback down so that we have it. Honestly, like them writing it down is going to be better because it's in their own words. And sometimes the things get lost in translation when we're interpreting what they're saying. So I guess that's my initial response.
So are you saying, sorry, this is Sabina, are you saying then that if we happen to be, moving through the crowd and we hear an engaged group of people talking, that we could just sort of say, I'm hearing some great things, can you all write them down?
Exactly.
Okay.
We don't want to lose that.
That would be like the tenor of our conversation.
Absolutely. And if they refuse, like if for some reason they're like, I don't want to do that, then that's like a great opportunity to take an index card and be like, oh, I'll write it down for you then.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens.
Some folks it's difficult for them to express in writing. It's easier to express for sure.
Absolutely.
And I've looked at enough qualitative feedback that sometimes you get it and you're like, what the heck does this mean? Really wish I could have asked. But, so like, I do think
Or
there's
even, I was gonna say, we could offer to record people with an iPhone. Like, would you mind if I record what you're saying right now? Or would that be, if they granted permission, just so that we had the snippets of the conversation, thinking of just easier ways to listen? I'm
I
also
agree.
wondering, Linda, if we should recruit maybe someone like John Abbott or Paula or a couple more people. I was thinking like Phil Newbeck, who was the chair of the Planning Commission before, to slightly expand our manpower so that we have enough coverage.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
or maybe even some folks like from the Conservation Commission or from the
Housing committee.
Housing
or-
Committee.
Yeah.
right,
Yep.
all the-
Yes, yes, yeah, exactly.
We
Great.
have about a half hour before Susan has to leave the call. I just want to be cognizant of that. And we started in on the materials question because that was the third bullet point here, was looking at that's your next slide. Great. All right, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is great. We're setting it up perfectly. So typically each of the 8 stations that are set up around the room have a suite of materials that are designed to support and kind of accompany the questions and activities that are developed to solicit feedback and to provide additional context on that particular topic. So oftentimes that will include informational posters, which we've drafted for you all tonight. And we'd love to, before we dive into some of the other materials, hear some of your comments. It would be great to leave this meeting with any directives related to changes and edits and revisions, or just general feedback of how to improve them. Knowing that the event really isn't that far away. We just want to make sure that we can finalize them and get them to what you all want them to be as soon as possible. So these informational posters, we designed one for each of the table stations. And so they represent kind of current condition information and some other kind of observations related to each of the topics that stations have been created around. So land use, housing, et cetera, that we talked about earlier. And so like someone said earlier, they have a lot of information related to kind of communicating the value of the topic as it relates to planning for the future of Jericho, as well as kind of major trends in terms of looking into the future, data displayed in different ways, and other types of findings. So yeah, we'd love to get some of your feedback on that. I do have the PDF of the posters that I have pulled up. So if we need to look at some of them in more detail, we can.
Oh, Sabina, thank you.
I had a question, I guess, for Liz and David, about whether or not there's a plan to have us post these little flyers online in advance. so that people can look at them even before they get to the meeting and sort of have maybe a little more time to digest things like graphs and things at home? Is that part of the plan?
David, do you want to jump in or do you want me to?
I'll let you jump in and
Sure. So we can absolutely post these on the town website in advance. Like we can totally do that. It'd be great if people knew how to access them on the website before the event, which would be one caveat as far as kind of coordinating additional outreach, whether we make a revised version of the poster or a different version of a poster that just highlights the community forum event and maybe directs folks to go to the website to check out some of this information before the event. So that would be my biggest thing, is just making sure we had an avenue and people knew how to get to the website to see them prior.
Yeah, I mean, we have, we have our community forum where we could post a link, because we have a dedicated page to the town plan on our website. So, and people have been using that to answer our questionnaires. So I think there's a little bit of precedence already in play. Yeah, I think that's doable on our end. So I guess I'll just chat with David more about getting the final versions and how we display them and all that stuff.
Does that work for you, David?
yeah, absolutely.
I had a follow-up comment to Susan's observation about the density of information.
Yes.
I think like white space, it can be someone's best friend when trying to, really digest some of this stuff. And why just one poster per station? Multiple posters per station would help us get that white space, more, fewer graphs on one poster. Plus that would allow more people to cluster without crowding around the station. We broke some of this information up. And I didn't have a chance to look really deeply at some of those at the posters from this morning, but one thing I do know, people love maps. And so I see that you had additional maps at some stations, but maps seem to really draw people in. So I'm glad
absolutely.
To see. And the other thing that I didn't get a chance to look really closely at was like what topics are included in what stations, like what thematically, how is this playing out? And I don't know if other PC members have comments about that, but do we think that how these themes are clustered in tables makes sense to what ultimately where we want to go with the plan?
Okay, great. So in terms of the first comment related to breaking up the content into two posters, we can totally do that. It adds a little bit more onto printing, but I think we're probably pretty good with that. I'll let David jump in if otherwise. But we can absolutely spread the content out so it's a little bit more readable.
Yeah, and I don't, some of the text, like the did you know, I don't think we really need that. Like seeing where we can decrease some text that maybe does not, just to create that more white space.
Cool.
So in some cases, it may be eliminating some text that's there. In some cases, it may be dividing that poster into two. And to the question about maps, I've been working with the Regional Planning Commission, and I have a whole series of maps that have been updated from the previous plan that we'll also have at each of these stations. But each station is topical, demographics, housing, transportation, economic, local economy. We don't envision that as for the purposes of the community forum that we're going to bring these things together into kind of broader themes.
Okay.
Agreed. Yep. Great. So yeah, David, you already touched on the fact that there's additional maps that are going to be created or that are being created that will be printed in large format so that they're very easy to read, and they'll accompany the educational posters as well. Before I go into some of the other items, I just want to make sure, is there any other feedback on the posters for us as we go and finalize them?
Chris, you look deep in thought.
Yeah, I agree with Wendy 100%. And even just to look at the terminology of the text and just making sure that it's very user friendly and not jargon.
I'd love to, if you have any more specific feedback, especially on any terms that you think are particularly jargony, please let us know. We're happy to take that feedback. So we can do our own kind of cursory look and decide.
Okay. All right.
But that would be really helpful just time's sake wise. We just want to make sure that any terms that you see that are like, that's not going to fly, like we can change that right away if we know.
So I guess,
Okay, so I'll have to do that in email, but I could do it tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you.
so my question is, so there's eight stations and it's a 2-hour event, right? So if someone was to spend the full 2 hours there, they would have 15 minutes at each station. There's a lot of information to absorb in each poster. And as someone who has spent the last few years on the planning commission doing this, like I'm sort of already familiar with it. And it already, even with that, it feels like, wow, this is a lot to just read this page, let alone then think, okay, what is this? How does this relate to me? What would my feedback be? And then to expect someone to be in for 2 hours is probably unrealistic. So I wonder if there's a way to, I think we need to have this information, but I'm also wondering if there's a way, like with housing, for example, I'm thinking like you could have pictures, right? Like a single family house, a duplex, a fourplex, an apartment building or whatever, just to help. So someone might say, oh, I like that, I don't like that. Or I don't know if there's a way that with images, this could be somehow more accessible, quicker for people. Or I guess alternatively, maybe what we can hope for is that someone would spend an hour there and dive into a few of these topics in depth and give us some great feedback. And that even if they don't get to all the stations, if there's enough people, we get feedback. But I'm just imagining it's just a lot to take in.
Oh, yeah.
And I understand that it's a lot, but I also want to, I guess I'm just asking, like, is it too much to expect that people are going to take all this in?
Yeah. Great points, all of that. So just a couple quick responses on that. So we definitely see the online version of this forum being a really valuable place for people. And a lot of folks tend to do this who go to a forum event like this. If they spend like an hour at one station and they have additional feedback that they want to provide for some of the other topics, but weren't able to, they can use the online tool for the next 4 weeks to be able to submit their feedback. And if we have links to all of the different kind of posters available on the website and through the online tool, I think that will provide a mechanism, depending on how people choose how they want to interact with this event. Because for some people, they do want to spend that level of time at any station, and they should be able to theoretically. But if we enable those stations to be accessible online, I think that is going to help mitigate that particular issue in one way, at least. The other piece I was going to say was, oh, shoot, just went right out of my head.
Follow up the front porch forum post to remind people that the online forum is still available and open after the event,
Right.
and encourage people that even if they didn't make it to the event, they can go there to fill out the surveys, and or if they did go but have more ideas or thoughts afterwards, that they can submit them through the online tool.
That's really one of the beauties of the online tool, is that somebody can kind of go through this, look at all the information,
Yep.
spend some thinking about it. And then, if they're anything like me, they have these great ideas at 3 o'clock in the morning, usually, the day after the event. So they can then jump in and provide that feedback on an ongoing basis.
I'm wondering too, like Chris's point about like images of different kinds of housing
Yes.
points.
Those are the
Is printing
keys.
a barrier? I mean, we have some of those images already. Maybe we could just run a slideshow. At a station in addition to posters, if that printing is a barrier versus cost and time. I know SJ and the Affordable Housing Commission has some great slideshows already. That they presented before with imagery. That I thought that might be helpful, and as do you, David, from that one presentation that you pulled together.
Sure, I think when it comes to showing, kind of to Chris's point about, suggestion of more of a visual preference survey, if it comes to the housing, I think you have to be really cautious and thoughtful about the images that you select and the diversity of image you select, so that you don't get people reacting to, I don't like that style of architecture versus
Yeah.
that style of architecture. They're looking at what an understanding of a single family building and a duplex and a triplex and a quad. They might all look exactly the same, but they can appreciate the fact that, oh, it's a house. It's a house that serves, one or multiple units, or it's a multifamily building. And
So one thought I have about these pages in terms of dispersing the data, I guess, is maybe you could think about it as terms of if you had the two primary most important messages for each topic on one board, and then have a supplemental board with some of the data that supports that. Almost like we're thinking of doing the restructuring the town plan itself, so that each section isn't overwhelming, but that the main topics are there. And then if you want more, if you want to dive deeper, you can, but that you're not just so that there's a single message or maybe one or two messages that sort of are primary.
if you were forced to only give two, your elevator
Right.
pitch on two
Yes,
two
right.
points
Right.
on each of these topics, what
Right.
would it be?
I do see Sabina's hand up.
I just wanted to do a time check and make sure that Liz gets through her thing before Susan has to leave. I don't know how much there is, but it's 10 to 8, I think. So sorry, I just wanted to keep us.
No, that's good. Thank you, Sabina.
Maybe for the purposes of kind of keeping things moving, we can be sure that we touch base on some of the logistic items here that I know that commissioners have had questions about, and we talked about it at a previous meeting, and then we can circle back to the posters if Susan has to jump off. Does that work?
That sounds great to me. Okay, great. So I'll just run through the rest of kind of the station materials. So I already kind of referenced the kind of discussion question worksheets or activities at each station, which are currently being created, as well as some of the kind of hard materials, easels, markers, pens, comment boxes, any kind of dot stickers or other mechanisms that we're asking people to provide feedback with. We have all of those materials. So as far as bringing them to the event, we have them. So we'll bring them. We'll also coordinate with David and any other on-site personnel to ensure we have enough tables and chairs and other logistical items like that in place. Typically, we also will set up some kind of welcome table that encourages participants to sign in, so that we can get a rough count of how many people have attended the event. And it also gives, if you all want to collect email addresses or other demographic information or things like that, you can. And every community is different with the level of information they want to collect. But the welcome table also will have name tags and things like that as well. Questions on that or any of these items so far? Okay. And then that brings me into refreshments, which I know is one important, again, logistical item to think about. So I just wanted to make sure that that was on here for your discussion tonight.
I already ordered a bunch of stuff.
Great. You're way ahead.
Yeah, I think we'll look to you all to cover the refreshments and those kinds of logistics, as well as helping to get the word out.
Yeah.
As we've already been doing.
Just so everyone knows what I've ordered are platters. There's like a cheese and cracker platters, veggie platters, fruit, and a dessert, like a cookie platter. So it's like snacky stuff. It's not like people are gonna show up and get fed dinner, but.
Awesome.
Sabina has her hand up, yes.
Sorry, I'm chatty tonight. Childcare. Is Wendy, with your work for the high school, do you think we could get some kind of a club to offer childcare? Because I think that would be helpful in getting participation up if we had childcare.
Yeah, I was thinking
And we
about that.
don't have to like solve it now, but I just wanted to put it out on the table.
Yes, let's see what any logistical or liability challenges are around that. Liz, did you have other slides?
I have one more. So this is exactly in relation to what David was just mentioning as far as getting the word out. I just wanted to touch base with you all and remind you that we are happy to help assist in any way related to content if needed. And if not, that's great as well. But we're here as a resource in terms of if you need any kind of updated or adjusted posters, flyers, things like that, or if you just need any other kind of content to help support some of the outreach mechanisms that David noted that you'd be pursuing for the next few weeks.
So one of the things we've talked about tonight, and I think at a previous meeting actually, is whether or not you wanted to have a poster that was specific to this event, as opposed to the one that's on the screen that shows kind of all of the events. Was there a preference as to how we approach that?
We needed to get the new posters printed up because we changed dates, right?
Yes, and there are new posters right by the front door, so if you would
Yeah.
like to take some with you when you leave today to help get them distributed around town, that'd be great.
Right.
I found a few of them, and I think Sarah picked up a few. But I don't know how many of the new posters have gone out.
There's not a whole lot of it. I can't quite see that from this distance, but it doesn't seem like it's, does it say the high school and the time?
It
It's
says high
just,
school, but not the time.
Not the time. It feels like that would be an important thing to include on a.
Agreed.
I know.
And we can update this poster ASAP tomorrow to reflect the time.
Yeah. As well as there being a Zoom option, like there is for the other meetings.
Mhm.
Have Zoom at the community forum.
Sorry, never mind. Online
The digital tool. Yeah.
digital tool.
Is any PC member feeling strongly about having a separate poster for the May 3rd event?
Well, I guess there's two sides of it. One is that we would start to have a lot of posters out in the town, but on the other hand, a separate poster would be less chance of that event getting lost in that series of events.
I will say, as someone who posts notices, there is limited space on most bulletin boards as well, so that's another challenge. When I go to post meeting notices, I'm like, okay, this one's old, I can take it down and put mine up, so. Maybe we need to think.
I almost wonder if our tried and true method of just all taking a turn on Front Porch Forum would reach more people than the posters would.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
We can still make changes to this poster? Is that what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, is there any reason, can we give more space to the May 3rd and June 6th and 20th versus the dates that are in the past? I get it that you want to have like this comprehensive, like, look, this is the whole story that we're doing, but we could de-emphasize dates in the past and emphasize dates in the future, and maybe and somehow make that May 3rd pop a little bit more.
Absolutely.
We have 5 minutes left. What is our, I know there's there are several PC folks that aren't here tonight, and I'd like to hear what they have to say. What's our deadline for giving you feedback if they wanted to weigh in?
On this poster, all the posters,
All of the above.
all the above.
Maybe not this poster. I feel like.
Okay.
I feel like that's not a
Yep.
major change, but for things related to the May 3rd event.
So my initial gut reaction, and I'm happy to discuss whether that's realistic or not, is the end of the week. But I could say Monday as well. Does Monday feel good?
Away this week.
Yeah, and I don't know when they're coming back. I don't know if they're gone for the week, but what we could do.
But next week is the school vacation week, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
what we could do, maybe if I could get a copy of this presentation.
Yep.
To distribute. To everyone tomorrow or as soon as possible. Then that would give the people that weren't able to be here a little, some opportunity to understand what we talked about tonight and get a better grasp on the format of the forum and things like that. And I've already sent out the posters, so I haven't gotten any feedback yet from anyone, but that might trickle into this week. I can just in that email send out a reminder if they do have feedback on the posters to send it as soon as possible and by Monday at the very latest.
Perfect. That sounds great. And we can get you a copy of the slide deck by
Yep.
tomorrow.
I'm doing it right now, Liz.
Oh, great. Way ahead.
Looks like there's a hand raised. Is that SJ? Yep. SJ.
Do you have time for public comment, or do you want to limit it to PC?
What, I would love to hear what you have to say, but knowing jump off soon.
Okay, I will go quickly through a couple of things. One, I think it would be great for Linda, our new town planner, to give the welcome. So I nominate her, not that I have any sway, but two, just wanting to ask for communication about any role, if any, for other committees and boards. I absolutely will be there and will be participating with enthusiasm. But if there's any other way that we can provide support, elicit or gather feedback, provide our specific expertise, please communicate to us how we can be helpful or how we can get out of the way and not muddy the waters. After the housing information session, I really walked away from that with an appreciation for the value of having very specific questions and intentional prompts. When you're inundating people with information, getting feedback from them sometimes requires really specific prompts. And I felt like that was important for that working session and would certainly be for this. And I haven't seen the materials that have been supported, supplied, so I don't know what the worksheets look like. And then the last thing, I think most of you hit on them. The last thing was just around accessibility. So options for folks who are unable to write for various reasons. Can we have a couple of people who are designated as scribes if people want to use them? Will there be childcare? Jessica Alexander has a great contact for who they use for town meeting and elections through the high school. And so she can talk about liability and stuff, just information for you, Linda. And also making sure that there are paper copies that folks can take home, fill out, and have a way to get back to Linda. There's lots of people who participate who are not tech savvy and won't be able to do the online tool, but will really want to sit and take their time and answer your questions and your prompts at home after coming and getting information. And can they get that back to Linda? And then making sure that that we've got masks on the refreshment table too.
Great. Thank you, SJ. Sabina.
My last question or point would be to ask about the possibility of taking the easels and posters over to town hall after this event and just leaving them up with you know, as a, you know, in the same way that we're doing the online option for people who couldn't attend, we have an in-person option where they could just mull around the conference room at town hall and get the same kind of experience in person.
Great comment, because that is something that we typically will do is we'll at the very least, often we'll have the posters hung up in town hall or the library or some other public location like that, and actually have some of the worksheets as well, and have it be an in-person place where people can contribute and provide feedback in a very, very self-guided way for a few weeks after the event. But thank you so much for saying that, because that is typically something we have done in the past. So great.
Awesome.
Jogging my memory.
Awesome. And I think Susan is formally signing off. She just sent a text that says bye. And some additional thank yous to David and Liz. So I still see her phone on the call, so I think we may have her for a second longer, but she may be dropping out soon.
I think we need to take a motion to adjourn as we're losing our quorum. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Sure. Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Sabina, could you second?
Yes, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. I second that motion.
And we are going to table all the other items for our next meeting. And we will, all those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sabina?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, got Sabina's aye. And Susan, are you still there?
She's already adjourned.
She's an implied aye. All right, thank you all. I'm sorry that we had to end the meeting abruptly. This was a great conversation. Liz and David, thank you for your time and energy on this project.
So the one thing we didn't close the loop on is comments on the posters by Monday? Friday?
On Monday.
Monday works for us. That's fine.
All right.
Thank you all so much. It was great meeting you.
All right.
Thank you
Thank
Very
you.
much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.